Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici, welcome my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to my channel, Fountain Pen Therapy. Well, last week was a very special week for me. I received the ultimate grail pen that I've been waiting for, more than a decade, I would say to you. It's one of the reasons, in fact, that I have this channel, inspired by a pen that originated in my country, my home country where I was born, in the region where I was born, etc., etc., etc. For those of you who missed it, I had a special unboxing where I opened up a package and nobody knew what it was, other than it was the hunt that had ended for this beautiful pen. And of course, I'm talking about the Delta Dolce Vita Original Oversize pen. And you see some emotions in that video, and I'm not going to repeat that. It's a one-time thing. I opened the box for the first time in public, if you will, and my emotions were evident, and you can enjoy that, if you will. Just find that video on my YouTube channel. This one is going to be dedicated to reviewing the pen and kind of giving it a little bit of a twist. In other words, it's not going to be a normal and simple template review. We're going to look at different features of this pen, its origins, especially that oversize characteristic of this pen. We'll do some pen comparisons. How big is it? Where does it fit in? And explain to you why, in fact, it's my ultimate grail pen. So, without any further ado, here is my Delta Dolce Vita Original Oversize vintage pen. Well, the first thing I thought I'd do, and I'm not going to go over the unboxing. If you want to look at that surprise unboxing, of course, you can take a look at my published video. But I do want to mention to you, for those who did not have a chance to see that, just kind of show you how this box came in. First of all, I purchased it pre-owned by a wonderful website and retailer, online retailer by the name of Peyton Street Pens. If you have not heard of it or have never had the chance to visit their website, please do. I'm forever grateful to that channel, or to that retailer, for having purchased so many wonderful pens from them, and the best of which, of course, is the subject pen. So thank you very much, Terry Morris. She got it to me very quickly, suggested to me the best way to get it here quick. And we went for it, and I think within 3 or 4 days, I had received it, and the rest was history. So that's where it came from. Very good price. And here's the box that it comes in. So why don't we take a look at that? We'll go to my overhead camera immediately. So here's the box, and as you can tell, it's quite a large box. Artigiani della Scrittura, Artisans of Writing, Delta, Italy. The right size is a slogan of the times, and I'll explain to you where that originated. Dolce Vita collection, and of course, oversize. So let's take a look now. It's pre-owned, so the box is in fairly good shape, I would say. Not the best. There's a little cracks here and here, but that's fine. First thing, it comes with, I mentioned in my video, my surprise video, a blotter. Of course, it's not a blotter. My emotions ran high there. It's an inkwell where this ink bottle, of course, fits in nicely, and the pen can go right here. So it's a kind of a desk inkwell, if you will. You also come with this ink. Now, somebody suggested to me, you got to write a few words with this ink. I'm hesitating. For the time being, I'm not touching it. Just keep it for my collection. And there is, of course, a kind of an eyedropper instrument here, which kind of rudimentary, but it kind of gives it some a nice characteristic or a vintage look. Yes, because this pen at the end of the day is a 3-in-1, i.e. cartridge, it's a converter, or you can eyedropper it. Although I don't think I will ever eyedropper this pen. I just not going to take any chances with it at all. It's always going to be clean, if you will. We'll use the converter. Very nice booklet, kind of plasticized. It describes what I find very fascinating about this booklet, it talks about the collection, it talks about the cap, the central ring, the body, the clip, the nib, the filling system, etc. So it gives you information on almost every aspect of the pen, which we will be reviewing. And of course, it gives you the international warranty, and at the time, it was a lifetime warranty. So there you have it. It's a fountain pen number, and the number is there. It's 1026. So there you have it. And the pen, of course, comes in this box, kind of a velvet, huge box. And when you open it up, here's the pen. And you've got, now, what I find interesting is this logo of Delta is a little bit different from what we are used to and what became. This D is kind of the logo that you'll see on this pen, whereas in the future editions of Delta pens, you see kind of a logo with this nib. But having said that, I found that very, very interesting. So we'll take out the pen, put the box back into its box, get rid of the box for the time being. I will keep the instruction book because it gives you some very detailed information that I want to revisit with you. So there is that beautiful pen. Right? So what are the characteristics of this pen? Well, first of all, this beautiful orange and the look black and orange, we've got to talk about its origins. Okay, so where did this Dolce Vita idea come from? Well, let me say that this summer when I interviewed Nino Marino, of course the president of what was, the original Delta, and president now of Delta, the new Delta, Mayora, Nettuno, Marchiaro. We went to visit his factory, and while we were in his factory, in fact, I asked him the question, Nino, can you explain to me what were the origins of this beautiful pen? And he explained that to me in detail. And rather than repeat it, I thought that I would revisit my video, and that portion of my video that went over the whole visit with Nino Marino. And here is what he had to say about the origins of this pen. And while we were in that department, I asked Nino about, what happened with this orange pen? What happened with the Dolce Vita? How was the Dolce Vita, how did the Dolce Vita come about? And he explained the story as follows. He says, at that particular time, in roughly 1996, all of the pens were essentially very classic black and gold. What we see in Mont Blanc 149 to 146, the sailor pens, essentially very bland and very classic, looking, even the Watermans are all black, essentially, and one day he gets a call from some supplier, I believe, or some individual that says, look, I've got a batch of this orange crushed resin. Would you be interested in buying it? And, he said, well, what am I going to do with this orange celluloid? It was very unusual. And he said, you know what? Let me buy it. I'll make a limited special edition pen with it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And he called the pen the Colosseum or the Coliseo. And to his great surprise, that pen instantly and immediately sold out. And he couldn't believe the phenomenon. So he was asking one of his distributors, why do you think this is so? And the distributor, he said, at the time, there was no internet. They used basically catalogs. And when you would flip the catalog, page to page, just flip through it, it was pretty bland. The natural color that would come out of the flipping is essentially dark colors. But all of it, if you put an orange pen in there and all of a sudden you flip that catalog, instantly you'll take notice about this orange pen, which sticks out like a sore thumb, if you will. And he explains that for some reason, it was a great novelty at the time and people just went crazy over it. And he immediately sold out that limited edition. Now, back to the drawing board, he had for many, many years tried to figure out what would he be able to do with the Delta brand or with a Delta pen that people would instantly recognize internationally as soon as the pen is shown. Or, somebody's using the pen and say, oh, that's the Delta, And he was looking for that kind of uniqueness that would instantly be able, a person would instantly be able to say, oh, that's a Delta pen. And then he thought about the orange. He said, well, this is a great idea. But of course, in speaking to the distributor, he says, well, wait a minute now, you can't come up with another pen that's orange, because if you do, you're essentially betraying the collector who has bought this Coliseo, which is orange and which is a limited edition. By definition, it should be a limited edition. And you can't all of a sudden start producing a bunch of orange pens, because then the collector who purchased that limited edition is betrayed. So he had to figure out how to do this, because he thought that there was something there that could be exploited. And in speaking and waiting, he figured, a couple of years will go by, people will kind of forget. But the distributor said, well, you got to figure out a way. So he said, well, what if I create a mini pen? And, he says, if you create a mini pen, then you're not betraying the Coliseo and the limited edition. It's a completely different pen. And that's when he created the Dolce Vita, the black cap, orange barrel, but in the mini form. And that completely took me by surprise. I would have thought, I had heard about this mini Dolce Vita, but my view, I thought that he started with the oversize and then, created the medium, the stout, and the mini came afterwards. But no, he explained that the mini, and he showed the mini, he's got it in his hands since for 30 years, was the original Dolce Vita. It was this mini that eventually led to the medium, the large, the stout, and the oversize. And then you had the oversize with the fusion nib, etc. So that kind of took me by surprise. But that essentially is the story behind the orange and black Delta. And then from then on, people said, the Dolce Vita. Oh, did you see he was using a Dolce Vita? And of course, the Dolce Vita remains to this day. I have one, which is the DV2, the brand new one. But to this day, remains my grail pen, that I'm hunting for and that eventually I will get, which, by the way, I did not get on this vacation because I'm really looking to purchase an original Dolce Vita Oversize, although he does tell us when I ask him that it's exactly the same pen. So there you have it. It came from Nino Marino's mouth. I translated what he had to say to me, and he has a wonderful way of communicating. And I just wished you could understand Italian. I would have played the original video, but I think it did a pretty good job translating or evoking his thoughts. And of course, the one thing what I found very interesting is the logo, or not the logo, the slogan that came out of all this, which was the right size. You mentioned you have the mini, then the medium, the slim, the stout, the oversize, and it's the right size, and it's the right size, no matter what size you choose, it's the right size, right? So I found that slogan just fascinating. It just depicts, in my view, Nino Marino's genius when it comes to marketing. Okay, so there you have it. Now, having described to you its origins, let's take a closer look at this pen. So of course you have this beautiful resin celluloid here, that orange kind of crushed ice look, if you will. The trimmings here are, the center band is silver, plated in gold-plated trimmings for the, just the bands here, along with this clip. The clip is a most functional clip with this. It's kind of a roller clip, a little ball there that facilitates the usage of the of that clip. And of course, you have the logo right here. And this logo, if you take a look at it closely, trying to get it as close as possible for you. Okay, I'm not sure you actually see it, but it depicts the D, that D that I showed you earlier in the Dolce Vita. Whereas in more recent times, if I take a look at, I'll show you another pen shortly. I think it's evoked more by here. You could actually see here the difference is the Delta. It's the actual nib, as opposed to the D in the word Delta. So that's the first difference. And of course, in some versions of this pen, where it's solid gold, that is a little diamond, apparently, as opposed to just a silver finial. So there you have the outside of the pen, and we'll get into the size in a moment. I do want to show you a very special pen comparison that will show you exactly why they call this oversize. Of course, you have here inscribed Delta Dolce Vita. And does it have the number anywhere? Yeah, right here you see 1026 Italy. That's correct. Anything on the barrel? No, nothing on the barrel. So there you have it. That kind of gives you an idea of the outside of the pen. It opens up in one turn to reveal this juicy nib. It's a Millennium 18 karat nib, and we'll show you a kind of a close-up that does justice to this nib. Okay, I did want to show you a close-up of that nib. Here you have it. First of all, you can see that the D standing for Delta, and I'm sorry for my shaky hands, very different logo at the time. It's a Millennium 18 karat 750. There's a number there as well on the side depicting the gold contact. There's an F on that side for fine. You have that beautiful big ebonite feed, number 8 size nib. Just a gorgeous. And I wanted to show you as well the difference between the two logos. Here we go. You could see that the logo at the time the Dolce Vita came out is that D, whereas the logo now and in later years it was that kind of nib was the logo. So completely different, and I did want to show you that difference. There you have it. But in terms of the rest, we'll do a comparison, but pretty similar. Even going right down to that band and the clip and the whole design of it is kind of very, very similar. So that is really the nib. Of course, the pen has, I thought it was a piston filler, but from what I understand, there were other versions, the Stantufo, the Federico Stantufo, because the Stantufo is, of course, there are some of the Delta Dolce Vitas actually have a piston fillers. Frankly, I prefer the cartridge converter because it's much easier to kind of, replace if this is broken or even wash out. Beautiful, beautiful nib, Delta engraved on it, shows you the spinach. Very different. I find it's a high quality converter. We'll take a look at the converter to see whether or not it's a bigger than others. I don't think it is. There's some residue here of what is probably some gel, because you can apparently eyedropper this, but I just don't like the idea of putting ink in that barrel. And of course, what you see here is some residue from exactly some of the grease that was put around here. There is an O-ring right there. You could see that. So when you cap it and you screw it, it does give you that sense that you're, really securing that grip. And of course, there you have it. Let me just back up a little bit so you could, appreciate how juicy this pen is. And at the end of the day, it's very girthy, but there's the girth is not accompanied by the length, if you will. Does it post? Yes, it does. That's where you go get the length. But I got to tell you, that cap is very heavy, and we'll take a look at some of the measurements in a second. But it posts comfortably. It kind of sits there, but a little back weighted. If you absolutely want to, you can. Of course, this section is very, very smooth. There's a little bit of a flare there, which is nice. And then you've got that juicy, big, juicy number 8 size nib. So there you have it. So it does post, although I'm not a poster. I prefer to write with this pen, frankly, unposted. So there is that gem. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so what I propose to do next is to take some measurements and do a comparison. I do want to show you why this pen is oversized, and explain to you some of the differences when we compare them to maybe some of my other Grail pens. Just stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, here are the pens that I've chosen as a comparison, okay? As you can see, this is my Momento Zero Grande. This is the Pelikan M1000. This is a custom Urushi, not the 845, the big one, but a fake, okay? But it's, the big pen or whatever they call it. Bought this on AliExpress, but apparently it's a pretty good replica. And so I'm using it just to see where it fits in terms of comparisons. Look at this. This is my Montblanc 149, and I think in terms of girth, look how much it overshadows the 149. Here is my Dolce Vita, my Visconti Homo Sapiens, which does have a big cap, but still nothing close. This is the Dolce Vita DV 2.0 that I thought originally when I bought it, I thought it was the oversized. It's not, but you can see it's longer, but not as girthy. And there is a difference in the resin. Look at the original orange resin as compared to the modern resin. The band is also a little bit different, but I don't know what the Dolce Vita or the DV oversize looks like. Nino Marino assured me that it's exactly the same. except, of course, the main difference being the nib. I do have this Marte Modena Dolce Vita Stantufo, which is a piston filler, which at the time was using Delta inspired design and the resin as well. And again, this one resembles a little more, because this is dated quite a bit. It resembles a little more the original as compared to that orange crushed resin that's being used today. Is it just, is it just the particular block of resin used? I wouldn't be able to say. There is, however, a difference. And in terms of size, this is, a typical size, kind of a Dolce Vita inspired other designs, including this gallery. It also inspired Nino Marino's gift to me, which is this Napoli C, C being, water, CSEA, which is one of one, dedicated to me, period. But again, you can see that it's kind of in size, it's just so much bigger, okay, the Dolce Vita, that is. This is my Delta Lex, which is quite a big pen, and yet the oversize is oversized. This is my Scribo La Dotta, and this is my Gioia, which is just an enormous pen, but when put alongside the Dolce Vita, the girth is significant. Now, I did want to compare. I'm going to give you exact measurements and put them up after this comparison, but I did want to show you the girth of the barrel of this imitation is 1605, and the Dolce Vita is 1565, so just slightly smaller. The cap, oh, hold on, I just want to make sure I'm measuring it at the right place. Okay, no, I was measuring it at the wrong place. Here, if we measure it rightly, it's 638, so it's even bigger than the Urushi. And in terms of the barrel, it's 1823 as compared to, this is huge. At its thickest point, this has got to be bigger. Just bear with me. Yeah, that's 19. But, when put side by side, you can tell that the girth of my Dolce Vita rivals with that big, huge, one of the biggest pens, in fact, which is that custom Urushi. Okay. But all the other pens, I mean, the 149, which is touted to be like a big pen, looks small when put side by side with the Dolce Vita. There you have it. So that's the comparison. Now let's take a look at the pens uncapped. Here are the pens uncapped, and as you could see, my Dolce Vita rivals even this huge Pelican M1000. But you could see that it doesn't shy away, and that nib is just gorgeous. When we compare it to, especially this this Mont Blanc, where you see they're both dual toned. Of course, this Pelican M1000 nib is just fabulous. One of the nicest nibs that I own, in fact. Although I'm starting to be very fond of this Dolce Vita, but for bias reasons. But there you have the pens, uncapped and unposted. Here you have the pens posted. The Gioia is just ridiculously long. In fact, it doesn't even fit in this drawer. The Scribo doesn't post very well. It's not a poster. But you can tell here that, now, it's unfair for the Urushi. I don't have the original, and it has a huge nib. This is a number 8 size Yowo nib that I put in there, and it kind of pushed it in, so half of it is inside, but I would imagine that the the real thing has that huge number 30 size nib, so it would probably, depending on how it posts, I would say would be bigger, if not just as big as my Dolce Vita. But you could see in terms of size, this Dolce Vita is it's huge. It's huge. And again, I'm not a big fan of posting pens, especially, this length, but there you have it. Gives you a good idea of the different size comparisons. So what I propose next is I'm going to put up some measurements so you have them, and you'll know their lengths, etc., and their weights. And then we'll take a look at the writing sample. Now, I did want to show you before we ink this thing up, is that converter compared to, this is the converter in the Delta DV 2.0, and this is the converter in my Dolce Vita. It is bigger by about 0.6 millimeters. It even looks bigger, frankly. Of course, it is not as big as the Jinao 9019, if you will. You can see that one is huge. But I did think it was bigger, and it is somewhat bigger. So I would imagine that a little more ink fits in that. Even the barrel, where you can tell from that section that this is much thinner than this. So there you have it. There is a difference. Okay, there is a difference. So let's we'll finally ink that pen, and we'll get to the writing sample in just a few seconds. Okay, so first of all, the ink. I didn't want to. It got tempted. I wanted to use maybe that Delta ink, but for a couple of reasons. One, I want to leave it in the bottle, and two, it looks a little light. But so I'm going to go with this. This is the new Mont Blanc Masterstuck Anniversary Coral ink. Comes in a nice bottle. Figure this is a nice kind of a coral orange, very bright color, because I used it in another pen already. In fact, I used it in the Delta Duna Happiness, that Atlas exclusive that I reviewed last week. So there you have it. It's inked. Let's see. This is Tomoe River paper, which is my favorite paper, and let's just see what this beautiful nib gives us. Okay, so this is the Delta Dolce Vita OS Oversize, and this is a vintage original. And of course you understand what I mean by vintage original. Okay. The nib is this 18 karat Millennium Delta nib, 18 numbers 8 size. Okay, the ink, oh, that's me, is Mont Blanc Anniversary Coral. Now, okay, first thing, wetness. Yeah, it's fairly wet for a fine nib. Does it have any line variation? You know, it's a gold nib, so it gives me a little bit, but not a lot. You know, if I press it, I guess it gives me a medium line, but it's a fairly fine It's smooth, so it is wet. Smooth. And it is fairly constant. I would really compare it to my Montblanc 149. In terms of feel, there's not a lot of spring to the nib. There is some. One, because it's a number 8 size, and two, because it is gold. But I would say that it's very, very similar in terms of feel and writing experience. Now, I don't know if I have any ink in this 149, but let me just... Yeah, yes, I do. Well, this is unfair because this is a medium, if not a broad. Yeah, it's not a fine. Yeah, this is a broad, I think. But it's a very similar feel. It doesn't have the springiness. Let me just compare it to my Dolce Vita. My Visconti. Oh, comparable. Yeah. Yeah. Very comparable to my Homo sapiens. Yes, 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 yes. Very comparable. It doesn't have the spring of my, it does not have the spring of this intimidating, a pelican. Mind you, this is, broad. But, the softness of this nib is unparalleled, okay? So it doesn't have the softness of that nib. It doesn't have the softness of this scribo either, which is this is the flex nib, of course. But it does have that smooth, fine quality. It's skipping on me a little bit, but just because I can't get used to the size of this nib. And I have a tendency not to hold the pen the right way. But yeah, fast writing. Okay, I guess. Not a problem there. I think this pen, with a little use, will get a little flexier. Very nice. Very, very nice. I'm not going to go into likes and dislikes because I don't dislike anything about this pen, and I like everything about it. So, I mean, if I made that clear by now, I know when will. Even if there's something wrong, I won't tell you. Allow me to be totally biased with the Grail pen that I've been waiting a decade to have. If you saw my unboxing. And when I opened the pen, I started tears in my eyes. You'll understand why. So you will forgive me. This is my treasure, and I'm not going to say anything derogatory about this pen. It's beautiful. I'm going to enjoy it. It's finally in my coffers. It's going to be with me for quite a while. So there you have it. It is A++++, 10 on 10 in every aspect. And that's my review, and I'm going to stick to it. And you'll forgive me if I'm showing that bias, of course. Okay. Nothing's perfect in this world. Nothing is perfect in this world, except this pen. Okay. Enough of that. Some of you may ask, well, now that you have your ultimate pen, I guess your Grail pen hunts are over. Far from it, folks. Far from it. The day after Peyton Street Pens put this pen up for sale, and of course I immediately grabbed it. ordered it, not the day after, but ordered it, received it, unboxed it, did my video. Later in the evening, as I usually do, I'm surfing. And one of the sites that I always surf when I have leisure time is Peyton Street. In particular, these days, I'm surfing that site for vintage pens. And I saw one pen, the number one pen, just brand new. It was in there in the afternoon, put up for sale. I'm not going to tell you what it was. But it's another pen that was in my hunt, and which I snapped up. So, Naughty Vince purchased another Grail pen. It may not have the same sentimental value as this beautiful oversized Dolce Vita. I'll give you a hint, it is not an Italian pen. So for some of you who are saying I'm fed up of Italian pens with Vincenzo, well, that pen is not an Italian pen. I'm expecting to receive it within probably a week. So stay tuned for another surprise unboxing, I think. My hunts are not over, far from it. And if we're going to talk about the Dolce Vita, given that this is not the original Dolce Vita, in the sense that the original Dolce Vita was a mini, I'm in the hunt for a Delta Dolce Vita mini fountain pen. Not the pencil, not the ballpoint, not the rollerball, the fountain pen. And trust me, they are not easy to come by. I did find one or two, and I find them overpriced, so I'll keep hunting. But in terms of Dolce Vita hunts, that Dolce Vita mini that you saw Nino Marino hold in his hands in the previous chapter of this video, where he explains where the origins of this juicy pen came from. He's holding this little pen in his hands that he's had, and he says, I've had this pen for 30 years. So you know what? Stay tuned. I may surprise you in the future. My hunt is continuing. So there you have it. Thank you very much for joining me. Please subscribe. I need some subscriber folks. A lot of you watch but don't subscribe. I want to just increase my totals a little bit, get that algorithm going. And not only that it'll enable me to send, you'll automatically be advised when I'm downloading additional videos. I've got all kinds of videos in the pipeline. So you know what? I still haven't finished all the Grail pens that I purchased in Italy this summer. I'm going to be reviewing those one at a time. So stay tuned for that. Allora, grazie molto ragazzi e ragazzi. Buonasera e buongiorno. Buon pomeriggio, whatever time zone you're in. Please enjoy your pens. It's fountain pen therapy for all of us, folks. Enjoy.